right, welcome back to the Stronger Together podcast experience. And I feel like I've been with you all every day this week. And when I think about it, I actually have been with you every day this week to get ready for Nightscape, to have so many voices come on and share what they're going to be presenting, meet so many amazing people. And I typically spend some time thanking our sponsors. So thank you, Swivel. Thank you, Ball. But because I want to jump right into it, our first guest today, we actually have two, has so many things going on. We only have a short amount of time. So Rochelle, welcome in. And for those people, for some unknown reason, who don't know who you are, tell us who you are, kind of what you do. That could take an hour in itself.
No, I would never do that. But thank you for the invitation.
Of
I do have
course.
to say, I love the intro. I love seeing everybody. And it just reinforces like the power of connecting and the excitement when you actually get to meet people in person for the first time. And I've seen some people and they're like, I have not gotten to meet them in person yet, but I feel like I know them so well just from connecting these spaces. So thank you again for the invitation.
Of
So
course.
hello to everybody. I am Rachelle DENÉ POTH, and I do a lot of things in education. I am a full-time language and STEAM teacher, also a full-time consultant, do a little bit of writing in my spare time, and I'm currently working on my doctorate in instructional technology, and I'm also an attorney. So you can clearly tell that I love learning and going to school or spending my time in school. So yeah, I made that really, really short.
That was good. And I love, we're really good at glossing over our accomplishments in our profession. And you're like, oh, I did a little bit of learning and a little bit of writing. Well, this is all the writing you've done formally. So if this is a little bit of writing, then we're all in trouble. So you have one that we're going to touch on a couple things here in the short time we have, but you have Things I Wish I Knew is the new release. Tell us what that's about. And for me, when I saw that, I was excited because it's what the first thing you said when you came on here, bringing people together. And you had an opportunity to bring some individuals together to talk about a story. So tell us about what that is.
Yeah, and you've done this too, because just going to say, throwing it out there, you had people contribute to your book as well, and it's just about connecting. And for me, I've contributed to a lot of different books too, as we all have. And I think that's such a great opportunity for somebody who's thinking about sharing a story, but maybe doesn't want to dive right into writing a book, because it is a kind of stressful process at times.
Right.
I mean, it's so valuable. And, but anyway, yeah, with most of the books that I've written, a lot of them have involved other people's stories, just because I like to help amplify the voices of others. And so the recent one came about just over the years, when you get in conversations or you're in a session at a conference and you're like, gosh, I wish I knew that years ago. Like, had I only known this, I would have changed things, and what an impact that would have made. So originally I thought about writing the book myself, things I wish I knew across the course of my career, but breaking it down, like when I started teaching or whatever. And then I thought, no, I think I would want to get more voices. So I changed it. And if anybody looks, at the cover, it has like things I wish ... the ellipses knew. And I opened it up on Twitter and just said, if there's any, how could you fill in this prompt depending on your role? Like, what is something you would fill it in? And so I got a lot of stories that were, things I wish parents, teachers, administrators, students knew about whatever the thing was. And then trying to, pull it all together and like get a fashion. And I almost thought about doing it in separate books, like things I wish teachers knew, administrators. And I thought, it's probably better to put it all into one book and then to put it into sections. But I'm really happy with it, because including myself, there are 50 educators from around the world.
Wow.
And I know, like, in many
That's
people
amazing.
that in the same networks, but like reading when I was getting the stories in, I'm like, oh yeah, this would have been helpful in like year number 3 or like now, like this is great information.
Right, exactly.
But the other thing about it too is like, it's not, even though it's been written by an educator and the voices of other educators, like they are lessons that can be learned by anybody in any line of work. Because I mean, number one, it's like the power of relationships and asking for help when you need it, and not being afraid to take risks and try new things is kind of throughout that. And then it ends on some funny notes, because, our mutual friend, Melissa Hayes, who's amazing, like has some funny, like it was just this list of things I wish I knew before teaching in a pandemic experience. And like, it's great, but it's real and it's authentic. And there's stories that, I guess there's like a theme in my books where you don't have to read from cover to cover. I mean, I want you to read it all, but you could just be like, oh, this looks like a great thing to read for today, or find something that resonates with you. So yeah, I loved putting that one together. And I mean, I won't say it's my favorite, but it is definitely one of my favorites because of the number of people that are involved in it.
Yeah, and I think that's where education is morphing into, like bringing other voices and having people. I say this all the time. The best part of doing this is seeing and meeting other people and learning from them and
Right.
learning what they do, and it's how we get better. And I think that's why, I know you are there, many and a lot, and I go to a lot. Like why we gravitate to events because we get to
Mhm.
see people in their element. We get to see individuals who are passionate about what they do.
Right.
And you had just mentioned, or in the intro, that you're doing your doctorate in digital learning in some capacity. You
Yeah.
wrote the book, The Future is Now. What's that? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I have to think back to that one because it was, if you're going to write a book, you must just dive in and write three at the same time.
Might
But
as well,
like
right?
in the future is now looking back to move ahead one is, and it also has vignettes. I had some guest chapters, and actually two of my students wrote in that book as well. In two of my books, actually, they contributed, I think, when they were juniors.
Oh,
And
wow.
I know. And it's basically, there's three parts of the book, and it's like kind of building your own capacity and your strength, and then helping to like amplify others, and then making connections also, and preparing for the future, how we can do that and best provide for our students and of course for ourselves to build those skills. But the foreword in that book was written by Dennis Griffin. And
Oh, nice.
actually, when he wrote his, it was supposed to be a chapter, but I read what he had written and it was so powerful. I'm like, this needs to be the foreword for this book.
Right.
And it was amazing. So, but towards the end, it talks about things that we need to stretch ourselves professionally. Even like, I'm not a STEAM teacher. Well, I'm a STEAM teacher, but if somebody says I'm not a STEAM teacher, I can't teach about coding or STEM or, future focus, whatever the skills are. But we all need to learn about those things, one, to stretch ourselves, but to best provide for students. So it's like, what can we learn from our past and our own experiences to plan for now, but also to look ahead and to amplify and to lift students up to, meet whatever is coming down the road in the world of work and in education with all things, emerging technology.
Absolutely. So I'm going to just take it another direction for a minute because
Okay.
you do, besides all the work you do at events and writing, you do this amazing podcast as well. And so tell us, and it's a Twitter chat as well. You have a chat as well,
Yeah.
Thrive and EDU. Tell us a little bit about that adventure, that project, and with all the things that you have going on, this is just another avenue for you.
It is. And I laugh when you pull that up because I just talked with John Beverly's daughter last night about podcasting. And he had put a tweet out there about, looking for some people to talk to his daughter about podcasts. And anytime somebody brings up my podcast, I laugh because I'm like, well, my podcast is basically like me talking to myself and answering my own questions. And when I started it, it was actually, it goes back and it's connected to Swivel because I had
Okay.
used Synth with my students for speaking assessments. And then at TCEA, I think probably 4 years ago, I got the idea to do, like you open the conference program and you're flipping through trying to find it, but then like there's Twitter. And I thought, I wonder if like some of my sessions or some sessions like Jamie Donnelly session, for example,
Yep.
I sat down in the corner at TCA, it was in San Antonio, and I just recorded a quick, episode advertisement on Synth. And I said, hey, if you're TCA and you're looking for a great session, blah, 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 this is happening right now. And I published it and it was like a little podcast. So then after that, back into, the summer, one day in my classroom, I thought, I kind of think I want to do this with my students. So maybe I'll just give it a go myself.
Well, just dive right into it, right?
Yeah. And I use these. I have a nice microphone, but every time I use it, people say like, that doesn't sound very nice. But I say like,
Oh, really?
that there's
Same
no
thing. I have
edits.
a yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this tends to work better. But I started it back in September of 2019, I think it was. And it was just Monday. What was I thinking? What did I learn? What was the conversation? Kept it 10 to 15 minutes and just very like, well, I'm not sure what the next episode's about, but that's what it is. But it ended up being a way for me to reflect on the work that I was doing. It also ended up being a way to connect with other educators. And then maybe it might be like just the one idea that somebody was looking for, something they were struggling with. But I did learn to use the Thrive and EDU show that I do with Mel McAllister and download some of those episodes into podcasts too, because that's just a great way to kind of, like get the live like you have here and then download it and do the podcast, then link the live show too. So you're kind of like working smarter and not harder
Right.
necessarily. But it's been, just another medium to use to share an idea. And I keep mine usually short and sweet, like 10 to 15 minutes, but yeah, it's kind of
So,
fun.
so you brought up the work you do together. So
Yeah.
there's this Thrive in EDU community, and you have this work that you do with Mel, and you know, dive into that, because as we talk about the collaborative process, seeing you do
Right.
work with other people is, I gravitate to the work that you do anyways,
Yeah.
because I'm just impressed by it, and it motivates me. And now seeing all the people that you bring in, it's like, oh, I like how you did this, and I like the
Yeah.
graphics there. So what's that project about for those who don't know?
Yeah. So that,
And it seems super fun. Again, it just seems
is,
like we're gonna have a lot of fun. And I just got a chance to meet Mel the first time
oh
last
yeah.
month.
Yeah, and she's great. We had a show last night, and we had Cheryl Place, if you know Cheryl, from Book Widgets. So we talked
Mhm.
about like Book Widgets. If you've ever used it, like it is awesome. My students loved it. So we had a lot of fun last night. And when I created the Thrive in EU community on Facebook, like Mel was doing coffee with Mandy Freilich for a while,
Yep.
like on a Saturday morning, and Mel said, "Oh, we should do the Rochelle and Mel, or Mel and Rochelle, or something." And I'm like, "Yeah, you know how I feel about this live kind of thing."
Right.
But then that was like early on in 2020. Well, then the summer of 2020, things on social, you probably saw this too. Like there were some, clashing personalities and comments, and it was a tough time. And
Yeah.
I felt like people didn't really know where to go to get the support that they needed. And I said, I've used Thrive and EDU, and the Thrive, it is my LLC. It's
Mhm.
a theme of my book. It stands for tenacity, honesty, relatability, integrity, vulnerability, and empathy. And those are characteristics that I believe that we as educators need to have and to help our students to kind of build. And so that's what the word Thrive comes from. But then one
Gotcha.
night, Friday night, I was like, I'm just forming this community in Facebook. So I just started inviting people. I'm like, da da da. And then Mel and I started to do a show in, I think, July of 2020. And it was just us. But then she had invited Julia with Parent Camp and Rabbi Michael Cohen
Mhm.
on one episode. And I didn't know. I was like, oh, who are these other people? And like I knew them,
Right,
but
right.
but it was just a different dynamic to have people come on, and Mel and I to have kind of our back and forth. And so, ever since then, we've been doing the different shows. We've had a lot of people on. We still need to schedule more people, but we just wanted to be a space where people, like, we were doing it Mondays and Fridays, and then we shifted to Fridays, where it's like a wind down at the end of the week. Here's what we're thinking. And if it's a guest, like, what are you working on to highlight and amplify your work, but also just to be a way to kind of decompress after a week, to laugh at our shenanigans, to join in our game, whatever it is.
Perfect.
And it's just fun to do. And we've gotten a lot of really great feedback from it. And I honestly miss Mel on days that we don't do that. I'm like, I feel
Oh,
lost, but it's good. I like it. And I like that dynamic of having that conversation, and then being able to go back, or if people can't catch it, they can join in at any time. But sometimes it ends up just being the boost that people need to see somebody, or to hear, even like when we check in, how's the week? Oh my gosh, this is like the longest week ever. And it's
right.
only like
Like a
Tuesday.
reality show, watching you two of you just have a conversation. It's great. It's how it
Yeah.
should be in this profession.
Yeah, so it's been really good, and I'm glad that she gave me the push to do that, because you have to step out of your comfort zone and take some of those
Sure.
risks, and you never know who it's going to impact either. And we've made a lot of really great connections through that, and have some people who said, I thought about doing something similar, or starting a podcast, or whatever, and they've done that. And it's nice to know that, and to make a new network, and to connect other
Sure.
people within our network. So it's been awesome.
So we have about 5 minutes left at max, because I know you have
Okay.
something else coming up. You're so busy. So with that,
Yeah.
how busy you are, how do you learn? Like, where do you turn
Yeah.
to grow yourself? Because for a while I was going to events and presenting, and I'd leave like I didn't learn one thing because I was just
I know.
talking the whole time. Where do
Yeah.
you turn to for you know, your own growth and inspiration?
Yeah, and that's the tough part, because I love to go to conferences and do webinars and things, and do the presenting, because I learn just as much. The questions that come in,
Sure.
they push you to think in a different way. And but for me, if it is a conference where I'm busy, like, I love those moments where you're passing people and you have the side conversations, or there's like the coffee meetups or things. But I do, I make it a point to read different blogs, so friends that write blogs and put that
Mhm.
content out. The podcast I listen to, when the lives, Teach Better, like, in the mornings when I can't, even if it's just a little bit, to catch those things.
Right.
Currently taking two very demanding classes, so there's a ton of reading involved in those.
Right.
And but even these events, people have guests on, just to learn about the work that they're doing, and to pick up the book. And I may not necessarily have time to sit down and read the whole book, but that's the thing. There's a lot of opportunities out there, whether it's a Twitter chat or it's a Facebook community or it's a
Mhm.
Voxer group or even Slack, with, looking at your beginning intro, I saw Carl Hooker in there a couple of times, and
Yeah.
he's been really great at bringing educators together in different networks. And then when you have conversations around like Nice Skate and Twitter DMs going back and
Right,
forth,
right.
and that's the biggest thing too, is like learning. It doesn't have to be specifically in a session or at a location. Like it can just be that quick conversation, a quick message, box or anything like that. So just got to find what works for you.
Awesome. So I'll get you out on this because I asked this for all of our guests. Well, two
Uh-oh.
things. First of all, tell us about the Twitter chat that you do. You mentioned Twitter chats.
Yeah, so Monday nights, I'm the host of the Formative Chat, which I've been doing for goodness, I think 7 years. Actually, David
Okay.
Kwan started it, and it was always about formative, and then he shifted away. So I just kept it going because people looked forward to that first thing on Monday night. Barbara
Mhm.
Bray has a chat before that, I think every other Monday, that Rethink Learning. And then it's, the night 7:30 to 8. It's a short chat, and it's just a great group to join in. So I'm always looking for guest moderators. If you've thought, yeah, I'd like to guest moderate a chat, but I don't know about the whole like hour long kind
Yeah,
of like
those are long.
intense, this one's a great one to start with. So you can just DM me and say, hey, I would love to guest moderate Formative Chat, and be happy to have you.
Awesome. Well, continue to do all the great things that you're doing. And the last question
Right.
is, what does stronger together mean to you?
Oh goodness, that's something I wish I would have known a long time ago. I got, I don't know, like volume 2 is coming right now. Uh, it's just you can't be isolated and keep to yourself. Like even, and for me, there we all have the challenges, and I think for a long time, you feel like it's a sign of weakness to ask for help and to say
Right.
like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm struggling with classroom management. I can't do all the lesson plans and things like that. But I've definitely learned that you have to ask for that help, and you are stronger together because somebody's going to be there to support you. And the more people you have supporting you, you have that solid foundation you can go back to in that network, that's not just benefiting you as a person and professionally, it's also impacting your students and those you lead and learn with.
Well, that is awesome. And we have 1 minute to spare. And I know you have a lot going on. I hope that I get a chance to see you this weekend. I know
Yeah,
it
me
may or may
too.
not happen. We have weather, you have things going on.
Like who would
And if,
think
yeah,
snow in November?
well, it's upstate New York. What are they thinking doing that event in the weekend before Thanksgiving? So have you been to Nightscape before?
No, and that's why, it's really like up there on the list. So
All right. Well, for all of you who are watching or listening in, make sure to check out Rachelle's website, which is right on her Twitter. I had so many things I could put up, but that seemed for me the hub. Go
yeah,
to your Twitter. From
that's
there,
the
you can get to your
easiest.
website and get to everything and all the great things you're doing, from writing, from books to podcasts to, guest blogs. All this great work. Keep it up. I hope to get a chance to
Thank
see
you.
you either
Yeah,
real
me too.
soon or very early in 2023 at FETC.
Definitely FETC. Yeah, if not.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to keep you. You have another thing coming up, and just so
I
you know, you
know.
are in the outro video as well, because it's
Nice.
always great to meet inspiring people like you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this and for everybody who's tuned in, and fingers crossed for, in person.
Yes, let's keep that up. Well, you have a great evening, and for
You
whatever
too.
your 6:30 is, go crush it.
Thanks.